Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen, on the 18th of November 2005. I came home with a curry and a video, and my wife burst into tears. This is unusual for her, but she was in labor. Her labor just started right then. It was raining outside, and I thought, now's the time to put on my big boy panties, because we're going to have a baby. And sure enough, 11 hours later, Henry arrived. And I had no idea how big the boy panties I was going to need until the pediatric practitioner came and measured his heart and said, no, he's got a hole in his heart. And so I'm worried about that. He might need surgery. You have to call a pediatric cardiologist from the golf course at 2:30 on a Saturday afternoon. In 2005, that phone call cost 4,500 rand. Fortunately, we still had medical aid because we didn't have children yet. But I remember driving home because I had printing to do for the Monday. I was running a workshop on Monday, crying my eyes out, thinking I'm going to have this boy with a hole in his heart, and now I have to do work, and it was all very traumatic and horrible. Fast forward a couple of years, Henry's fine. I mean, he is a boy, so he suffers with his gross motor coordination, he suffers with his fine motor coordination. He's had more therapy than you and I have had at breakfast. He's had occupational therapy, physiotherapy, psychotherapy, speech therapy, any therapy you can name, this boy has had it. He's been to remedial school for a year because they thought that he couldn't cut it. Nevertheless, he speaks fluent German and fluent English, and life goes on apace, no problem. So we had our second child, much less traumatic story, an amusing story in itself. And we thought that was it. We closed up shop. We thought that was going to be that. And then we had a shock. A third child. Yes. So I had to once again put on my big boy panties. And I was in such shock at the time. I got myself a contract doing podcasts for the digital marketing world. And I would wake up at midnight, and I would work from about midnight to about 4 o'clock, because at that time of the night, it's quiet. So you can actually record and edit without having 3 kids, or 2 kids, because Imogen hadn't been born yet, and traffic noise. But that was my life. I would wake up at midnight, I would go to bed at about 3 or 4, I would sleep till about 7, and then I had to get Henry off to play school. Astrid was still little, she didn't have to go to play school. So, then the podcast contract fell through, but I felt that I'd got through it. It was okay. Imogen's 2.5 now. Everything's fine-ish. And now Henry is going to big school. He's going to Crawford Forwards. And this requires the putting on of a uniform. Now, for a boy, this is a task. The putting on of a uniform is never easy. And for boys, and for Henry in particular, it's really not easy. And I said to Janet, my wife, I said, just wake me up at 6, and I will make sure that he gets dressed in the morning. And I remember the first morning she did this, I walked into his bedroom, and Janet had laid out the uniform. There was the shirt, and the underpants, and the pants, and the socks, and the shoes. And I said, Henry, it's time to get up. It's time to get dressed. And he said, Papa, I don't know where to start. Have you ever had that feeling? I have. Where do I even start? And so now what happens is I get up at 6 and we start at the top. I say, what would you like to start with, my boy? He says, underpants first, please, Papa. And we put on his underpants, and then I put on his shirt and his trousers, then we put on a jacket, of course, and a jersey because it's cold, and sometimes a scarf and his trousers and his socks, and then he goes downstairs. But he said to me this morning, in fact, he said, Papa, I hate getting dressed. And I said, you know, my boy, I know that. I know you do. Come and give me a hug. Because even when you're wearing your big boy panties, sometimes you need a hug. Isn't that right? But this year, we now have to move because Imogen is 2.5. So I've bought her a big bed, single bed, but it's big for her, she's 2.5. So now we've got 2 bedrooms and 3 children and 2 adults. So if you do the math, it's not big enough, essentially. So now we have to move. And I phoned the bank, and the bank didn't get back to me. And so I phoned the seller of the house, and the seller of the house wants me to sign a contract that says I will give him 160,000 rand by Friday. I did not sign that contract because I don't know about you, but I do not have 160,000 rand in my bank account by Friday. And last night, I went out to a dinner, and I said to my wife, I won't be late, I'll come home. And I got home at about 9 o'clock, and she had locked me out of the house. So I phoned her, and her phone was off. I phoned the landline, and I could hear it ringing. She couldn't. She slept through it. And so I went to a bed and breakfast, and I spent the night in a bed and breakfast, fully clothed. You'll see that I'm wearing a warm jersey tonight. I knitted this myself, just in case I have to do it again tonight. And so I woke up this morning and I phoned the bond people, and they want 3 years financials because I'm self-employed. They want an ID book, a proof of residence, my wife's bank account, 3 payslips, a semen sample, a stool sample, a sperm sample, a urine sample. I'm thinking of just giving them my underpants. And of course the head of my firstborn child. And I was feeling a bit freaked out. I really was. And so I reached out to a friend of mine. And normally this woman says to me, Erich, put on your big boy panties, she says. This is no time to panic. And you know what she said today? She said, get all those scattered parts of yourself together and remind them who's in charge. You're in charge. She says, and if I was there, I would give you a hug. Because even when you're dealing with these things and you're overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, even if you know you have to put on those big boy panties, sometimes it's just useful to be kind to yourself, Erich. Sometimes we just need a hug. Mr. Toastmaster.